Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick from the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Before we get to today's episode, I want to tell you about a great new sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and this particular podcast, and that is Palacio and Zimmerman, the accounting firm. You know, all those Uncle Sams and Lady Liberties twirling their signs out there can mean only one thing. It's already tax season, but instead of losing your hard-earned cash to companies that hide behind a costume or DIY software that specializes in headaches, give Palacio and Zimmerman a call. PPZ has been providing premium accounting and tax services to clients for over 25 years. They'll make the filing process simple through close one-on-one support and maximize your return using their exceptional expertise. So if you're ready to file, call 305-595-0303. That's 305-595-0303 or visit ppzllc.com. That's ppzllc.com. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, we're back here on the 5 on the Floor podcast. Ethan Skolnick, full crew tonight, Alphonse Sidney and Alex Toledo. You can follow them at Alf954 and at Tropical Blanket. We're still looking for that imaging from our friend Brass Jazz for their 2 segments. The what is it going to be? Alf Test Theater or I Test Theater? Are we deciding on name?
Alf's I Test. It's undefeated.
Alf's I Test undefeated, 82-0.
Let's check the numbers on that.
Yeah, I don't think actually undefeated. And then, of course, we're going to do the wet blanket segment. Although, actually, I feel like Alex has been more positive than us recently. So I think that's kind of unfair. But, you know, once you get labeled with something, you never lose the label. So that's what we're going to go with. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be the second time now. Learn it the hard way with professional screw up.
Oh, that's correct. Right. That's right. No, we don't call you our professional screw up here. That's that other podcast. I don't know that one. All right. So let's get to 2 topics today that I really want to hit on. We're a couple days out from the Spurs game now by the time that you hear this, but the big story was Kendrick Nunn. And there was a tweet that came into me, and I feel like, again, talking about being, mischaracterized. There was a tweet that came into me that said, you guys didn't pod because, or something to this effect, because Kendrick Nunn had a big game. There's this perception, and I don't really know where this came from, that this podcast is a bunch of, Kendrick Nunn detractors. That may be another podcast. It's not this one. I'm not really sure, how we got that reputation. I think what we've discussed about Kendrick Nunn, and he had 33 against the Spurs. And I'm going to go through his numbers month by month, which are increasing again. It looks like he hit a little bit of a wall and went over it. We've talked about what a great story he is. I think we have all talked about what might be some limitations in his game, particularly sort of the tunnel vision and things along those lines, that the teams were, sort of pushing him in a direction that was not the same as the ball movement that we get from other Heat players. But I don't think we've been negative about Kendrick. And I think we've talked about it being a great story. And I think all of us have talked about the progress he's made. So I'll start with you here, Alf. I mean, what is he?
I was negative. I've been the most negative. I'll be honest. Kendrick Nunn's game is just not the normal game that I enjoy, especially at the beginning of the season. But like you said, we've been a very congratulatory of him lately because he's been making those pocket passes. He's been making the right decisions. I've been very congratulatory of him lately. But yeah, overall, I have been a little bit negative about Kendrick because sometimes, especially at the beginning of the year, I felt like what he was doing was taking away from the offense. It wasn't inside of the offense. But lately, he's been completely inside of the offense. He's done his lookaways, like just subtle lookaways, have made so many openings for him in that little mid-range jump shot. I mean, it's just amazing to see, and it's because he started making those passes. So yeah, whoever made that comment, they can go, themselves. But I really feel like I've turned the corner on Kendrick. So I feel like this podcast, if it was coming from me, I feel like we've been nothing but congratulatory lately.
And I think, and I'm going to go to Alex on this, I think the difference is, all of us, particularly I think me and Alf, we're negative on Hassan. And so I think there's a perception that we look for particular players to pick on, or whether it's Dion. It's not personal. It's game style. It's just there's a certain a kind of game I think that Alf and I both, and I think Alex appreciate. But the difference is it was pretty clear that Hassan was not going to make any changes to conform to what the Heat wanted to do, whereas we've seen Nunn make these adjustments very, very quickly. One number before I get to Alex, you just talk about pure points per game, which I know is not the best stat, and obviously you're playing at a higher pace than you did a few years ago. But Dwayne Wade as a rookie was 16.2, and Kendrick is 15.9. And I don't want to hear about Kendrick's 24 and Dwayne was whatever he was, 20. The reality is he's facing NBA defenses for the first time, and he's proven to be a consistent scorer with decent efficiency. Alex, in January, 7 games in January, he's shooting 51.2%. So yeah. He's not shooting great from 3. Where have the improvements come for you? And is he, in your view, is he a starting 2 guard in the NBA, which we didn't think he was at the start of the season?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think he's made that perfectly clear. Obviously, he came into a situation that made a lot of sense for him, and Spo has found out how to utilize him best. I think he's been told since he started being the starting point guard for the Heat is shoot, shoot, shoot. He's essentially being used as a shooting guard, like you said. I think he's a shooting guard in a point guard's body, and that's exactly how Spo has used him, where Jimmy is pretty much running the offense a lot of the time. Without the dribble stuff, he's the one doing a lot of the initiating along with Bam, and Nunn is feeding off of them. And I think what's changed since the beginning of the season is at the beginning he just heard the shoot, shoot, shoot stuff, and it was kind of like feeling the pressure to go out there and score whenever he was in the game, whereas now he's kind of just taking the game little by little and just reading the defense more than anything, more than trying to force a bucket, even though he can kind of force buckets a lot of times. But like Alf said, he's not doing it in the offense, and he's completely proved himself. Like, he's absolutely playing at a started level. He's a starting level scorer. He's kind of been like a low-key three-way scorer, three-level scorer, and that's something that they could have absolutely used. And he is no doubt number 2 for Rookie of the Year. You can't – even though we're all a little bit higher on Tyler Hero, what's actually happened this season,
he's been a better player than Tyler this season.
Yeah, this season.
But we know this. We all think the ceiling for Tyler is higher, but Kendrick Nunn has been a better player. And Alex hit on a great point. At the beginning of the season, Kendrick Nunn was pressing. He was pressing a lot, and he was forcing a lot. We've even seen that from Jimmy at times, because there's times that this offense stalls, and individual guys, Dragic, Jimmy, and Kendrick are the most guilty of this, feel like they have to do things on their own. And sometimes they actually do. But there were times at the beginning of the year when Kendrick was pressing and he was forcing things when they didn't have to be forced. The offense was doing fine, and he was just going out of his way to press. The most impressive thing that Kendrick has done, is, like Ethan said, is in the short amount of time in the season, he has, talking about completely changed his game, but he's made those subtle changes that a lot of rookies can't and don't make until their second or third year, and maybe it's because he's older and more mature. Kendrick Nunn is used to being the best player on his team by far, right? Through high school, college, and G League. And a lot of young players have a tough time adjusting to the fact that there's 4 other guys on the floor that can play just as well as they can. He has made that adjustment pretty quickly in the space of a few months, and he has to be congratulated for that.
No, he does. And you mentioned it. He's number 2 for Rookie of the Year. John Morant's going to win it. And, I predicted that before the season. As soon as Zion got hurt.
They might make the playoffs, by the way, which is insane.
It is. Well, I think they're going to make the playoffs, actually. I think because the other thing is they have the Iguodala commodity, which it's funny. That's hysterical. I mean, that's a topic for another day. But, I mean, he basically decided to stay home. He basically decided to stay home because he wanted to play for a contender or a playoff team, and now they are a playoff team. And if they
never left the Bay,
they're right, exactly. Never left the Bay, and if he wants to go play for Golden State, they're going to be 30 games under 500. But Morant's going to win Rookie of the Year, no question. He's going to deserve it, and I think we all agree that Herro's upside is higher. I mean, that is a simple product of age. I mean, he's 19, but also there are more dimensions to Tyler's game that you can see. He's going to be more than a scorer. He's going to be I think a premium ball handler. I think his finishing is going to improve. He just has an instinct that is abnormal. I mean, I think it was Matt Moore, who is a good follow on Twitter at HP Basketball, was saying he's done a lot of work on the Heat the last, week. And, basically what he came away with was Bam's going to be elite. And if he's not already, and so is Tyler Herro down the road. And so I think we all agree on that. I don't think Kendrick Nunn is ever going to be an elite 2-guard, but I do think he's proven himself to be a starting 2-guard. I want to go over some of the numbers again with you guys on again, because I feel like, and I said this on previous podcasts, so I don't know why we've gotten this reputation, that I feel like we had taken Kendrick for granted a little bit, and his story for granted. I mean, what he's doing should not be happening, right? I mean, I don't, whatever the circumstances were of him not getting drafted, I mean, he should not be in a position where he's scoring 16 points a game as a rookie on a contending team and doing it at decent efficiency. But I'm looking at some of the splits, and I have found these interesting with him all year. He is a much better player in wins. I know some of this is chicken or the egg type stuff, but if you look at his numbers in wins, he's averaging 17 points as opposed to 12 in losses. He's shooting 47% from the field as opposed to 41%. He even shoots better from the line in wins. All of his numbers are better. He's been a little bit of a barometer for them this season. When he doesn't play well, they tend to lose. And when he does, they tend to win. Whereas Jimmy has been kind of the reverse with his scoring and his shooting percentages. Like, they win more games when Jimmy doesn't score, which has been strange. They win more when Nunn does score. So I don't know what that means. But the other thing I noticed on here, and just one more thing, Alice, the other thing I noticed on here is that he has suffered more than any other player. I crunched the numbers on this today on the back-to-backs. He's been bad on the back-to-backs. With 0 days rest this year, he's shooting 38% from the floor. His turnovers go up, and he averages 11 points a game. Whereas 3+ days rest or 2 days rest, he's averaging close to 18 points a game on 48 to 49% shooting. So I think some of this is, and this is a topic I don't think we've talked about enough, Tyler Herro's already played more games than he played at Kentucky. Kendrick Nunn has never, I mean, the G League schedule is short compared to the NBA schedule. So I think this is something to watch as the season goes on. Like, do these guys wear down? And I think with Nunn, some of it just might be he hit the wall a little bit from a fatigue standpoint, and he's kind of crossed it. Anyway, Alex, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt earlier, but yeah, you nailed it. That was one of the things I was going to say was, the fact that he hadn't played this amount of games in such a short time. Like, these seasons are very long, and he's a rookie. And I think the same thing is kind of happening with Duncan Robinson to a lesser extent because he didn't do the ball handling scoring type of role that Kendrick Nunn is in. But yeah, like, these guys are definitely going to go through that. I think that's why, there's been some holes poked in the Heat's chances at a long run is because they're depending on 3 essentially rookies. I know Duncan Robinson is a second-year player, but it's his first year getting big-time minutes. And they're going to need the shooting in the playoffs, and that's probably the majority of the shooting comes from those 3 guys, right? And I think, like, what you were saying before about the Kendrick Nunn and W's and Kendrick Nunn and losses, I think a lot of that has to do with the home and away stuff. And that essentially what it dwindles down to. I bet if I had to guess, like, a lot of it would bear out the same way with Duncan and Tyler Herro.
Well, let me look at that before I get to Alf. Let me look at the wins and losses and the home and road, because I think you're probably right. So if you look at his home road splits, he is. It's not as dramatic as the others. He's averaging at home 19 games at home, 17. Plus, he's been durable. He's played in all 40 games. 17 points a game at home, 15 on the road, 46.5% field goal percentage at home, 45% on the road. So actually, his splits are not that different. Herro's are more dramatic than that. He shoots the ball better from the line at home. Young players, that tends to be the case. But his rebounds, his assists are a little better at home. That's the other thing, guys. The assist number in general is started to creep up a little bit. He's at 3.6. I mean, on a team that spreads the assists out a lot, that's not terrible, actually. And, he's at 1.8 turnovers. So it's a 2-to-1, assist to turnover ratio, which, again, for a rookie player is not bad. Alf?
What I'll tell you is that of all those guys, and this has completely changed for me from the beginning of the season to now, the one I trust on the road the most now is Kendrick Nunn. Because he has shown in the last month. Yeah, I know this sounds crazy coming from me.
Plot twist.
in the last 4 to 6 weeks, man, he has been the guy that on the road still shows up. And like you said, he hit a wall. He had a rough little stretch, but he bounced back. And to me, it just shows his maturity. And like I said, whether it's an age thing or not, one of the things that scares a lot of people about this Heat team, like Alex said, is about the amount of inexperience, right? There's a lot of inexperience on this team. Kendrick Nunn, out of all of these guys, is one of the guys that I feel like the Heat can count on the most on the road or in a playoff series when things get a little hectic. I don't think Kendrick Nunn is ever going to be scared of the moment. Not to say that Tyler or Duncan is scared of the moment, but you got to understand, like, the pressure situations these guys have been in is not on par with NBA level pressure. I feel like Kendrick Nunn has come around. I feel like his learning curve is a lot shorter, and it should be, right? Because Kendrick Nunn is older than those guys,
right?
And even Duncan Robinson. I don't know how much older he is than Duncan Robinson. I'm not even sure. Maybe a year, maybe two. But Duncan Robinson has never gotten these kinds of minutes. No. Duncan Robinson has never been required, looked on to close out games the way he is now. And you see what happens in Duncan Robinson at the end of games. He really stupid fouls every game. And when they could use him at the three-point line, he's picking up dumb fouls on the other end. Now Kendrick, he's grown into this role very quickly. And like I said before, I'm gonna do the mea culpa on him. I was wrong on him a lot, and he's grown, and it's just, I mean,
yeah, no doubt. And I think you mentioned Duncan. You're right in the sense that where he at Michigan he was not counted on. I mean, I don't think we ever got to the point with Duncan in college where people necessarily thought he was even going to be a pro. Whereas if Kendrick hadn't had the one off the court issue, which forced the transfer from Illinois to Oakland, I think everybody thought he was a first-round pick. Like, you look at it reminds me of Preston Williams with the Dolphins a little bit. I mean, you look at his he was second, in 3 points made to Trae Young, right? Playing at a school that, is a smaller school but has had some success and has played in the tournament. So, they're not – I mean, it's just not some school nobody's heard of. I mean, Oakland has produced some pretty good teams and some pretty good players. So, I just think with Kendrick, you're right. There's a certain toughness to him. There's a quiet toughness to him. I think that's why Jimmy was attracted to him as a teammate as well as he was the other guys. I did talk to Kendrick for a little bit for my story about Jimmy that I'm working on, and he said that he and Jimmy have developed enough chemistry for them, at this point where Jimmy has basically told him, look, I'm going to screen and you're going to space. It's really fascinating that your star player is basically saying, I'm going to screen for this 24-year-old rookie. But that's Jimmy Butler, right? And so it's great. And so, I'm going to touch on a lot of that kind of in my piece.
And Kendrick closed the game against the Spurs.
He did, and Jimmy had 11 points. With Jimmy screening, and Kendrick scoring 33 and Jimmy scoring 11.
There was no way that Kendrick Nunn could not finish that game.
No. And just like the 40-point game in the preseason.
I remember a stern Alf unimpressed with that performance.
Well, I know. The comp that I've made with Kendrick Nunn, not from personality, but just in sort of background and it being a Riley team, is John Starks. And I don't know that they're the same player, although John Starks was a point guard who really was a two, kind of undersized to play the two. A lot of Kendrick's movements on the court remind me of Starks, and I've acknowledged John Starks was my favorite player. During that period of time, I loved watching Starks because he feared no one, Jordan, anybody. He didn't have the talent, but he feared no one. And that dunk that the poster, everybody remembers that. But there are similarities to me. Like, Nunn has this ability to elevate into dunks on the break. Like, he's got this extra gear. It's not Derek Jones Jr. gear. It's not Bam Adebayo, but it's his extra gear where he doesn't look that athletic in some of his movements, and then all of a sudden he elevates and dunks. Like, there's more there to his game than I think we've kind of given him credit for, and I think that's why I wanted to focus on him today, particularly after the 33-point performance. All right, we're going to get to more here in a second. I want to touch on some trade scenarios that are running around Twitter. We're going to do this rapid fire with these guys. But before we do, make sure you go to betdsi.com, particularly this week. We got the 2 conference championship games coming up. Obviously, Tannehill against Mahomes, a matchup we all predicted before the season. And then you've got Green Bay and San Francisco, Rodgers, Garoppolo, and all that going on. BetDSI.com is where you want to go. Use the promo code 5101. That's FIVE 101. Again, that's BetDSI.com. And look, you can bet the NBA as well. You can bet NHL. The Panthers won again tonight. That's 3 straight wins for the Panthers. The Heat were, I believe, 5-point favorites against the Spurs the other night. Told you to go jump on it. They won by 6. So go to betdsi.com. Again, that's 5101, FIVE 101. You get a bonus if you use that. So don't go to betdsi.com and not use the promo code. All right, let's get to some trade stuff here. And there's one more topic with Nunn that we may get to before we close, but there's a bunch of stuff on Twitter today. So let's go through it. I almost feel like this needs to be a regular segment with us. A couple of names have kind of bounced out there. We saw a Jeff Teague trade today, back to Atlanta. Kind of a weird one in my view. I'm not really sure what the Hawks are trying to do. And
time is a flat circle.
It is. I don't know what Minnesota's up about either. I don't really know what their plan is. But this.
You sure?
Well, right. But this comes up though, Alex. Well, here's the thing. There was a report also that they're looking for another ball handler. I remember when all the talks were going on. Now they have different people in charge. Tibbs is not there, but there really wasn't much interest in Justise Winslow there at the time. Again, Justise is not making the trip to Oklahoma City, for which we have our watch party at GQ's Craft House to get there. It's in Lauderhill, by the way, GQ's Craft House. We're going to be there starting at 7 o'clock on Friday night, and we're 1-0 there this year. They beat the Bucks. The Heat beat the Bucks on the road without Jimmy Butler playing, but no Justise again. I don't know if Minnesota would have interest. I don't know what you'd want from Minnesota except for one player, Robert Covington. So I threw this out at Alex on a text string. I'll get your answers on this. You'd have to do some other stuff to make this work. But just player for player, if I was to say to you, you could replace Justise Winslow, who isn't seeming to be playing much this season, with Robert Covington, how would that help or hurt the Heat, Alex?
Man, honestly, if you want me to answer this question objectively and just remove my morals and my justice biases, which regrettably I don't want to do, but yeah, Covington would be a better basketball fit on the floor right now. Like, that's just because of, the way that they're winning right now is with that system that they're running, which is all the things that we've been talking about this season where, Jimmy and Bam are the ball handlers. They have their pet sets that they go to, that they run all the time. And Covington would fit right in. And they need that type of two-way player who can reliably hit threes. He's not a knockdown shooter like Duncan Robinson, but who can reliably hit threes, who can cover big fours, who can cover threes, switch onto other guys for a couple seconds. I think he would be a perfect fit basketball-wise. But I say that with the caveat of, he's the more reliable one. He's the more stable one. You know what you're getting if you trade for Robert Covington. Whereas with Winslow, it's more about his upside. And, he's made leaps since his rookie season, right? We saw him be a decent spot-up shooter for 2 straight years at 38% from 3. So you sell yourself on that, and on the fact with the ball handling stuff, there's a little bit more upside there. We've been saying that Jimmy needs somebody else who can handle the ball, somebody else who can penetrate, somebody else who can get the ball to other guys, and Justise gives you that upside while also being able to hit some open threes. So, yeah, I mean, Covington's a better basketball fit right now, but I don't know. Like, you probably have to give up more to trade for him because of that stability that you're getting from Covington and the fact that he's an elite defender.
Alf?
It's a hard question to answer because, okay, let's say both guys healthy, both guys fully at their peak, right? I'd rather Justise Winslow because he can do more on the basketball court. He can handle, like Alex was saying, he can handle the ball. He could be your starting point guard. He takes a lot of pressure off Jimmy. I don't see Robert Covington taking pressure off Jimmy as far as on the offensive end. Where on the defensive end, yes, he can cover the other team's best perimeter player, and it takes Jimmy out of that. A lot of times, Derrick Jones Jr. has been filling that role. If you look at the Spurs game, Derrick Jones Jr. did a much better job on DeMar DeRozan than Jimmy did. So that's a kind of role that Robert Covington can fill. But if Justise is fully healthy, he can fill that, and on the other end, shoot 38% from three, handle the ball, distribute, do things while Jimmy's off the court. Like Robert Covington can't cover Jimmy while Jimmy's off the court. Like he can't fill that role that Jimmy fills. The problem is the best ability is availability, and we hear that all the time. And Justise Winslow is just not available. So the second part of the problem is Justise Winslow even tradable at this point? Like, is he? Because I was listening, I listened to a radio show today, and it was Sedano. Sedano said the Heat's most valuable trade asset that they'd be willing to give up is Justise Winslow. Mm-hmm. And right now, because he's not healthy, he is not valuable. So I don't even know. I don't even know if this is viable. I don't know if it's something to talk about, because without Justise being healthy, he's not valuable enough to trade. So. I mean, the Heat are stuck in another quandary with a dead roster spot, and it's frustrating at this point.
Well, they have 4 dead roster spots right now. Well, JJ is not so much. It's funny. JJ has replaced Skolnick, so although Skolnick did get the minutes in the last game, and he's replaced Justise, but obviously the Dion roster spot's a dead roster spot, and Udonis, from a playing perspective, is now Silva fills out that contract. And congratulations to Chris Silva too. That's a great story. For him to get, we knew it was coming. I said it was going to be, mid-January. It was mid-January. They got it done. There was nothing to worry about. And I think he'll get more into the rotation now, because I think his inability to practice on this team doesn't have that many practices to begin with. Spoelstra has pretty much canceled all shoot-arounds this year at home. It's been a little bit different the way they've run things. He's been getting away from shoot-arounds the past couple of years, but not to this degree. And it's more film work and that kind of stuff, and not making them available to the media. And I get it. But what's been interesting has been, when you take a look at, Silva not being able to practice at all, I think that's hurt him getting on. All right, we got one more topic to get to, but I want to do it. I have to tell you about Seltzer Mayberg. Go to onecalllegal.com. That's onecalllegal.com. Make sure you spell it out, ONE. Calllegal.com. They've got someone there 24 hours a day to handle all of your needs. They do immigration, personal injury, traffic tickets, and much, much more. They're based in North Miami, right off 95, right before the Golden Glades. But they handle cases from all over the states. That's a Seltzer Mayberg law firm. You're looking to get your traffic ticket handled, they'll handle it for $49 and up. And trust me, it saves you a lot of money from actually going through that process. Okay, they will get it thrown out for you, most likely. They did for me. All right, let's get to one more thing here. Bradley Beal, okay? When I had Candace Buckner on the podcast a few months ago, we were talking, and, she's saying Bradley probably going to sign the extension. She was right about that. But, I said, okay, but at some point during the season, the losing is going to get tiring. So start with you, Alex. Bradley Beal came out and basically said the losing has gotten tiring. They're 13-27.
Wow, what a surprise!
Which is what we expected. We thought they'd be 25-28 win team. They're right in that ballpark right now. I don't know what their plan is. Free agents don't typically like to go to Washington for whatever reason. So let's look at the offseason again. He can't be traded until the offseason. How many assets would you give up for Bradley Beal? Let's try to do this in a minute or less, guys. Alex.
Well, if you want the short answer, it's anything that isn't Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo. And at the same time, like, it would push me. I would have to get pushed to the end to give up Tyler Hero, and I probably would, because I think Bradley Beal is that good. He's still very young. He's, 25 or 26 years old, and he is right now at his peak. We've seen him be good in the playoffs as a young player. I'm not worried about the defensive stuff. I think when you put him next to Jimmy and Bam and the other guys that you can put him next to, he's going to be just fine. Like, they're out there playing Duncan and Myers Leonard. So I'm not worried about Bradley Beal's defensive fit, but that guy's putting up 37 and 5 like nightly for the Wizards. He's really damn good. I think that might be like Hero's upside, and that's being generous. Bradley Beal is really damn good. I would give up pretty much. I would try to go with Justise Nunn and a pick, something like that. And then, if they really push me, I'd give up Hero. But even then, that's if they don't trade some of these things right now, the trade deadline.
Right. Alf, would you give up Tyler Hero to frontline a package for Bradley Beal?
No. My untouchables would be Hero, Bam, and Butler, and everybody else is up for sale. when it comes to a guy like Beal, because Beal, the hard part about saying no about Hero is because Bradley Beal is pretty much Tyler Hero fully realized.
Mm-hmm.
But the more of those guys on your team that you can have, the better. Yeah. And the thing with Bradley Beal used to be a good defender until the entire weight of the offense was put on his shoulders.
Yeah, it was.
Bradley Beal is a good defender. At the point of attack, he could be a good defender for you if he has other guys that he can rely on the other end. So I'm not even worried about his defense. So to me, it's Butler, Hero, Bam. Besides that, anybody else would be available for a Bradley Beal.
And remember, they don't have a ton of draft. I mean, well, they have more of their draft picks than they've had before. But obviously, there are some restrictions. You can't trade.
But their salary. So you're talking. You're gonna have to give up Dragic, like Dragic or Leonard.
You are, just to make it well. Again, after the season, and like I said, Dragic and Leonard, you've got the cap holds on them, but they can make it work. But again, it would start with Tyler Hero and then other pieces. And like you said, Tyler fully realized, but he's been in the league forever. And he's 8 years older at this point. And he's still a young player. But he's 8 years older, and it's like, okay, do you want to give up the ascent of Hero for the win now? We'll see. I don't, the other thing to consider, we haven't talked about this much. This requires another podcast. I mean, the Kyrie Irving comments this week, but Kevin Durant's coming back next year, and that's going to change the East. And we haven't really talked about that much, but like, I wonder if that's in Riley's mind also, that like maybe Ethan, we need to do the kill now.
Ethan, that team is too emo to win anything.
Well, the emo
Kevin Durant and Kyrie
emo or not
Irving,
emo. I'm not a Kyrie. I'm not a Kyrie guy.
I know, but that's a lot of sensitivity on one team. I don't know if I can.
Emo, when he's at his best, Kevin Durant's the best offensive player in the league. So
that team is wearing eyeliner, and that's.
All right. Well, let's get to the end of this. I don't know how we decide. I don't know how we went.
Can I drop a couple of things right here?
Well, you can, but Zoom's going to drop you. So go ahead.
All right. So like the Brooklyn thing, man, you guys need to be careful because if Miami had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant with the supporting cast that they do, where like Dinwiddie's a borderline all-star, they have LeVert, Joe Harris, Jared Allen, we will be flexing so hard right now, and they're going to be a problem next year.
They are, and
it might take a while with KD. But the other thing I was going to say was we're going to do. You said you wanted to do trade stuff. Did you want to mention the DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge? You want to do a couple minutes on that?
You just did. We talked about Aldridge on the last podcast pretty extensively, so check that one out because it was a preview pod. But as far as DeRozan, we can hit on it. But let's do this. Let's hit on it at our watch party because, like I said, we've got 40 minutes and we just killed the whole thing. GQ's Craft House. 7:00. I'll be there. Alf will be there. I got a babysitter, so I'm good. Alex, you'll be there?
No doubt.
All right. So 3 of us are going to be there. Some others from 5 Reasons Sports Network, Alfredo from 3 Yards Per Carry, Ryan Lasner. We've got a bunch of commitments from our guys. Had a great time last time. Heat beat the Bucks, as I said, without Jimmy Butler. The last time we were there, they've got great craft beer. Alf has put this whole damn thing together. It's a small place, so we hang out with you, and we may do a podcast afterwards. And I'll tell you what, Alex, we will do all the DeMar DeRozan talk you want as soon as it's over with.
I'm going to
30 minutes of DeMar DeRozan talk. Let's go.
I'm going to the wharf after. So,
I wish I could, but I don't have a babysitter past 12. But maybe okay. Now that you mentioned that might get extended. Check out 5 Reasons Sports. Check out 5 Reasons. That's down the street from my condo. 5reasonsports.com. 5reasonsports.com. Spell it out. And our Twitter account, of course, is at the number 5 Reasons Sports. All right. We had like 12 other things to cover, but that's why we have other podcasts. Talk
Big
soon.
Sunday show. Big
Sunday show.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.